All righty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. My name is Dre Devots, a systems engineer here at Verify, and I'm going to be your host for today's workshop. Today, we're joined by Matt Sykes. How's it going, Matt?
Just fine, Dre. How about yourself, sir?
Doing well, doing well. Matt's going to show us how to do some reporting on answer and abandonment rates as calls traverse through your call handler. First, we're going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. Next, Matt's going to go over how to report on answer and abandonment rates as they traverse through your call handler. We're going to pause for Q&A and get some of your questions answered. During the demo, if you have any questions, please make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right of the screen. After Q&A, we will reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR, UCCX, and Cube Call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, remote phone control, and change management. But today we're going to be focusing on call analytics. Last but not least, for those of you looking for a more hands-off Verify experience, we do offer a managed consulting service. This is a service that provides a dedicated Verify SE to do all the heavy lifting, giving you and your users a completely hands-off experience. Think of us as an extension of your organization. It provides upgrades, one-on-one training, report and dashboard building, or anything you need. Your dedicated Verify systems engineer has you covered. The only thing you have to do is give us a call or send an email. If you want any additional information on our ECS service, please reach out to your account manager. We'd be happy to see if ECS is right for you. With that being said, I'm going to pass the ball over to Matt and get this going here.
All right. Thank you, Dre.
I got to figure out how to do. Oh, there it is. Got it. Presenter. Boom.
There we are. There's my share option. We'll share out screen two, and then we'll get rid of all the WebEx headers. Drag this over to the monitor. Okay, hello all. This is Matt Sykes here. Okay, this may be a shorter webinar today, but I thought this was worth sharing with the field. Okay, so I was working recently with a client, and they were asking about answer and abandonment rates for calls coming into their Unity call handlers. They had a previous reporting platform that had these broken up into two different reports. Well, within Verify, after a little data discovery, we can easily build them into one report, and even build out some corresponding dashboard widgets to complement. Okay, so as always, I like to take everyone into the analytics module, into the history section here, kind of the quick search, or the sandbox as I call it. I'm going to focus in on the San Fran cluster here. Excuse me for a moment. And we're going to run through a sample or two to identify, my call handler for today's examples and demonstration purposes here. Now, I do have three menu options off of this call handler that we will be covering for today's content, and I do happen to know the corresponding directory numbers for them, but I'll just focus on maybe one of the main options here in this history section here, just as a quick data discovery exercise. So I'm going to pick on one of these. One of my hunt pilots is actually servicing a call handler tree that we have. And let's just maybe look at the previous 7 days. I don't think I have current dates data in here. So for 77280, now this is a hunt pilot. Now, certainly we do have the hunt pilot DN field as, as a searchable metric or as a searchable field. But the reason I do not, or most of us here at Verify probably don't lean on the hunt pilot number, is because because we lean on that as a filterable field, we're going to not discover calls that were dropped or not answered by the hunt group, for instance. And I should have one here to explain. Here's a perfect example here. So looking at calls that came into the 77280, here's two that are right here, do not have any date time connect on them. They have a 0 call duration here, so they're probably abandoned or some type of failed calls. But just as a quick example, though, the reason why we lean on original called party number as opposed to hunt pilot DN is for when calls are not answered by the hunt, certainly as you can see here, the hunt pilot definition, or DN, excuse me, is not populated in the raw CDR. So so that's why we recommend leaning on original called party number. Okay, with that said, so for the previous 7 days here, I've got 99 calls that were presented to 77280. Very good. We can look at these and all these data columns that I have, but I want to export them real quickly and look at them with our cradle to grave reporting logic. So I'm just going to click the export button, not worry about all the other bells and whistles and graphical interpretations. Really just want to turn on the cradle to grave here. Turning on this toggle will enable all the sequences for all the related call legs to a specific call. And then let's go ahead and run this in HTML so PDF doesn't chop columns on me. All right, so for these 99 calls, we'll see here in a moment, we're going to be able to pick and choose some examples from this so that we can go ahead and build out a nice polished report that can be ran on frequency or ad hoc at a manager or user's disposal. So very quickly here, quick export, original called party number equaling the 77280, 99 calls. Okay, very good. Mainly what I want to get to is the furthest most right column, because turning on the cradle to grave logic will give you in the detail elements this furthest most right column of related calls. There are hyperlinks that are in here that will bring us down further in the report, because as you can see, this is quite a lengthy report. Will bring us down to in the report to that specific one call and the associated call record with it. So we can certainly jump down here. What is bolded in orange is with matching my initial search criteria, which was original called party number of 77280. Okay, but just jumping into this, the C2G sequences here, what my eyes are looking for are going to be calls that are actually hitting my Unity handler, which I know that they are off of 8,000. Now, certainly 8,000 is also apparent in calls for direct dials to a user's device or user's DN that they don't answer rolls to voicemail. But in this capacity, we're going to be able to see with the call splits off of these cause codes that it is forwarding and there is a call forward all on. So this should be representative of a Unity handler. And also, we were searching by the 77280, and even on this one here. So an inbound caller called in, hit my Unity handler, listen to the the menu tree, press options 1 through X, we'll call it, and then present it down to that corresponding hunt group that's actually servicing that that menu option press. So in this one here, we see 8,000. They press, we'll say option 1. They get presented to this, we'll call this a pharmacy option 1 line. So this is a hunt group. It gets stamped here. Call was handled by 1541 on this Mac by that end user for 4 minutes and 4 seconds. Okay, so very easy to us to identify that this was an option press from a Unity handler here, and we can build things around this, reportings as well as dashboard widgets as well, which we'll cover later on. So we can certainly comb through this, and I'm only leaning on the 77280. I have 2 other hunt groups that we're going to play with for today's examples, but this is kind of the ebb and flow that we want to be able to look at. So once again here, another sequence, you can see external caller, spoof data, of course, into my 8,000 handler. It gets, they press option 1, they get routed over to, we'll call it pharmacy option 1, and they're handled by that user, the same user as the aforementioned record up above. But obviously we can see other bounces and handlements and transfers within the rest of the sequencing. But that's not really what we want to inundate ourselves with necessarily. Certainly you can turn this on if you want to see exactly how much transferring and rerouting and forwarding is actually happening on these. But for brass tacks, for today's purposes, we're just going to solely pick on calls that are being handled and or abandoned or rolling to voicemail when they're presented off of these handler options 1 through 3 we'll pick. Okay, so another thing that's in here that's of consequence as well that we're going to cover today that I was asked was answer rates. So I certainly there are clientele out in the field there that have kind of benchmarks that or thresholds, if you will, that they're supposed to meet on this style of traffic. So there's going to be like average speed to answer kind of metrics that they were inquiring about. Well, within Verify, we are formulating a ring time metric here for all the calls that are flowing through the call manager system, and we are registering it. So for instance, on this call record here, we can see they went into the Unity handler, and after 25 seconds of ring time, then they were answered by this agent here. So kind of knowing that and actually having the luxury of that field, we can use that as a filterable option to provide us additional metrics for speed to answer. So calls that are being handled in under 30 seconds was the ask on that request that I had. So I've kind of formulated some of this content around that. So kind of knowing that, some ring time, we're going to take that actually to the report engine here. And I actually, to save everyone from me building this from scratch, I already have the report built. So let's just comb through this report real briefly. So I'm labeling it as a pharmacy example, answer and abandonment rates. So let's go ahead and drill into this. So combing through this report, okay, so the basic wrench here is pretty much just basic basic information. Search sets, another name for our filters. I have 3 search sets built in here for each one of those option presses. So pharmacy option 1 is an example, of course. Leading on that first 77280 example we just kind of ran through, I do not want to include internal traffic over to this hunt, so I have excluded it by using the calling party pattern and um, filter here of greater than X amount of characters to take my internal 4-digit DNs out of the equation. So it'd be truly external inbound traffic from 10 plus digit varieties. Okay, so that's option 1. Option 2 is a different hunt. I'm keying off the 77311. Same rules apply for filtering out the internals and leaning only on larger external calls calling in. And then option 3. So here are my 3 DNs that I have dug out of the data before this call to go ahead and build this report. So we have these 3 search set filters already in here. So we're good to go with that. Now, a lot of information we're going to want to know additionally is certainly volumes. So how much call volume is being presented to that option over X time frame, broken down by maybe hour of day or day of week or date. If it's a longer time frame, certainly can do so. So we're going to do that as well as build out some kind of grouping mechanisms for it. So in the grouping wrench here, so certainly within the search set statistics off of these 3 search sets, we will get very high level statistics for total counts, answer percentage, abandon percentage, and a handful of others. But I've also instructed the database engine here to go ahead and then group those results by the original called party number, i.e. the DN or the hunt group pilot's directory number. So we're going to list it out by that. We'll list it by name. We could certainly do kind of a leaderboard, ask if we want to sort it by highest to lowest based off the total call count. Certainly can do that. But then I'm also baking in here some totals, some answer rates, as well as abandonment rates as well. And then in this one, I have a lion's share of detail options turned on so we can actually review this if and when we need to. But we don't necessarily need to actually have all this detail turned on in the report. It can very easily be suppressed, and I can just turn it off to make abbreviate the report from a 100-page report down to maybe a 5-page report. And as well as we could also yes. So and also I have in the cradle to grave. So as I was mentioning those kind of those answer rates or kind of a response time to handle calls that are actually coming to these handler options. So I've also in the cradle to grave built out additional search sets in here. So even though we're leaning on the initial search sets that are hitting 77280 and the other 2 pilots, I've also specified where the ring duration is less than 30 seconds. So kind of while we were combing through that earlier, and I was looking at this, at the ring duration on calls that are being handled and how much time it actually took or speed to answer to get to that corresponding agent on one of those lines. So I've built those out down here. So there's all of them. They're labeled, with their options, very detailed, so it's very, very precise. So no one viewing those are kind of led to any ambiguity with regards to what the content is offering. Okay. So I have those built in here. So I've got initial search sets for the 3 hunt groups. I have groupings broken down for the individualized hunt groups, as well as I have tertiary cradle to grave sections for answer rate under 30 seconds for all 3 of them as well. So let's actually go ahead and run this guy. So I'm gonna hit the play button on this, and we'll probably run another one in PDF because I think it'll look a little more attractive. But I will be dropping off the detail with that. So this one has all the detail turned on. I'll just point this back to say 2 weeks. And I think there's 500 some odd calls there. We'll just give this a moment or 2 here to run. And what this is going to give us is going to give us a handful of different sections within the body of this report, including the granularity of all the history details, which we probably do not want. But certainly I just want to kind of show it to you as well. So let me zoom in a little bit. The HTML does have us zoomed out. I think 150 should do us. Okay, so very high level. So the search filters that I built. So pharmacy option 1 was that 77280 hunt pilot that we kind of took a quick sample exploratory search on. So we can see for the previous 2 weeks for these latter weeks of July here, 409 calls were on option 1, 61 for options 2 and 3 respectively. But also we have in here, their answer call percentage, and also their average answer ring duration, abandonment rate, as well as abandonment counts, voicemail, etc. But also, as I mentioned, the cradle to grave section that we lastly saw in my report build, I do have these 3 search pieces built out. So I can see that for option 1, out of the 409, only 295 of them were handled within a 30-second time frame. So there's your kind of your speed to answer kind of a metric. So we can certainly build those out with percentages for those answer rates as well. But I also then have broken down the grouping section. So I've also even told it to group it by that calling party number that we saw in the raw data. So here is 77280. So all these numbers should reflect the same. So 409, 409, 61, and 61. And these are obviously just a small sample size of the ones that were handled of these 531 in under 30 seconds. And then also we can build out in this grouping section, I have built out some call categories to identify, calls over, the period over period in this data table here for this time frame. So we can see the DNs of those pilots right here. I have them broken down by date by these call categories of total count, answered call percentage, ring duration, answered call average ring duration, abandonment rate, as well as counts, abandoned counts. And wrapped over 2 more items there, but also then we can graphicalize this as well. So if we want to see exactly what the period over period is, maybe not in a data table, maybe actually broken down into a bar graph, certainly can do so. I've only tossed these 3 in here of total, answered, and abandoned. We want, obviously, most environments are going to want their answered calls to be very close to their totals or their presented calls, and hopefully a minimum of abandonment. But then also we can break these down by the hunts as well. So I'm breaking these down by a time unit of date over this time frame. Could certainly throw in a different time unit if I wanted to, like hour of day, cumulatively broken down over this time frame. Could certainly do that. So we have all those graphicals broken down in there, as well as we have the granular detail of data. So for those 2-week time frame for this option 1 on 77280, certainly I can see what the answer rate is, the abandonment rate, but also we have the detail of all these calls. Now, certainly if some calls are of the 0 duration variety, we're not going to have, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. But these ones are actually getting handled because they have positive talk duration, but they do not have any corresponding related legs that we need to identify at this time. Okay. So we have a lot of good information here. And as you can see here, I mean, the 95% of this report is all detailed down below. So if we needed that granularity, certainly you can turn it on with the Cradle to Grave to see, all the sequencing and ebbing and flowing and redirecting of all these calls, whether or not zoom back in for your eyes, whether or not a call is maybe running into call parks or something like that, as opposed to getting delivered to the hunt or presented to the hunt group off that menu option. Certainly we should be able to see that. I'm sure the call park in here. There we go. So as an example here, yeah, so calls that are being presented off of, actually, it's a pretty interesting one, off the Unity handler, went to contact center, picked by an agent from the contact center, then transferred over to that, excuse me, transferred over that hunt of 77280, and it looks like they don't answer it. And I'm sure there's a code as well. Excuse me. User busy. Here we go. So user busy on that, and then we can see that native call queuing is invoked, and it parks the call almost immediately. But then someone picks that call up. So there's definitely different variations, and definitely benefit of actually looking at this data within Cradle to Grave, within Verify, before you're kind of formulating and building out all of your reports and/or dashboard widgets. So a lot of high-level content here. Once again, we can always run these guys in frequency, but also maybe we want to put something like this up on a large television screen or a monitor, or have it as a permalink from a dashboard on a secondary supervisor's monitor, for instance. We can certainly go ahead and do so. So I have taken upon myself, of course, that's zoomed out, to go ahead and build out a corresponding dashboard to actually complement all those widgets that I have. Excuse me, to all the content that we saw in that report. Of course, it's not going to go back the way I had it. Oh, pardon me. Let's just go ahead and change it to 80. All right. All right. Excuse me for one moment while I resort this. All right. So what I have built out here is exactly what we have in the report. So there were, there were 531 some odd calls that were presented totally here, as we can see, over this time frame on these 3 menu option presses here. But then I have some widgets broken down in the dashboard. Now, the luxury of the dashboards certainly is that they're refreshing every couple of minutes or every X amount of time frame. Now the CDR widgets by default refresh every 15 minutes. You can pull it down to 5 minutes, but that's certainly, it doesn't go any lower because we don't receive data in real time from Call Manager. But what I've done in the widgets here is I've actually kind of just built out the hunt group kind of exposure exactly into the calls that are being handled, just as I did in the report. So we're seeing original call party numbers hitting those 3 let me zoom in for, I don't want to zoom in because it's going to ruin the dashboard. But these are the 3 menu options, the 77280 and the other 2 Hunt Pilot DNs, filtering out or only including external calls that are calling into the environment over X amount of time frame. So that's why this is matching the report. We can see what our answer rate is, what our abandonment rate is, and the corresponding counts, and then the totals and averages as well. So we can list this out like this. We can list this out like in a grouping widget as well, just like I'm doing here, just like it was in the the third section of the report body. So the grouping section here, I'm actually grouping off of that original called party number, which truly is the Hunt Pilot DN. We can build that section out right here, and it will look exactly like it was on the report. Certainly, you can fluctuate the time frames that you see fit. In this example here, I'm just using previous 2 weeks, but you could be looking at current month, previous month, current day, whatever your need may be. You could even have multiple widgets that are pulling same content side by side, one looking at maybe previous month, one looking at current month, for instance. So you certainly have those options on the dashboard capability as always. But then we can break this down a little further even. So a lot of the same stuff that we saw from the report. So calls that were presented at option 1, option 2, option 3. I've got them broken down here. So here's option 1 in a volume widget that's specific for this option 1 line. I have broken in here a lot of other summarization as well. So the answer rate, the abandonment rate, and their counts, their corresponding totals and averages for options 1, 2, and 3. Just playing with some color codes just to differentiate them. So here's 2, here's 3, but then I've also then built in, just like I did in the report, all the calls that are actually being handled off of this, this 409 or the 61s during that time frame. So once again, the 295 that were answered in under 30 seconds. So we certainly, just like I had in the report, we have the luxury of using that ring time as a filter. And that's exactly what I'm doing in here. So I'm going to zoom in on this one here. So with this one, for instance, on option, I believe this is option 1, yeah, pharmacy option 1, the 30-second answer rate. So in here, I'm keying off of, once again, original called party number of 77280, but I am curtailing the ring duration filter to less than 30 seconds. Certainly, there are going to be calls that are over 30 seconds of ring duration, but those are not meeting our SLA or our benchmark for our response rates in this environment, let's say. So we can very easily build that out and then ascertain those metrics quite easily. Okay, so this is a pretty simplistic board. Once built, as always, you have the sharing options that you can certainly share with peers of yours, or you could even turn on the permalinking access to it, and then the way you can just go ahead and copy that URL and save it, and then pass that URL over to a peer or a manager within your environment that may benefit from this content. So the benefit of obviously our permalinks is that they are read-only, and there's no admin functionality in them to modify any of the content whatsoever. So in a moment, you'll see all of the admin modules completely stripped out. I do not have any edit options or copy options or deletion options. It's kind of a foolproof read-only board here. And once again, it's following in tow with the refresh intervals that are built from the main board that built it. Okay. Now, certainly we're looking at a lot of things here, and I always like to throw in a couple of different options. So we do have what's called label sets, or custom label sets that we can configure within Verify. So underneath the analytics section on the middle gray bar here, we can go to configure. On the far right here is custom label sets. So we can actually build out and relabel content within the Verify that's more suitable for the audience that's being displayed to or presented to. So certainly we can relabel it all. So we can relabel detail columns if you want to utilize those. Search criteria types, so we can kind of relabel things so they make it a little more user friendly when they're building out their own reports or their own dashboard widgets within Verify, if you plan to go that far. But for my examples here, I built out a couple different. I built grouping types and some call statistic scenarios. So the original called party number, true, that's the out-of-the-box Cisco nomenclature, but maybe on this example for the dialed party, I actually just want to list it out as Hunt Pilot. And correspondingly for some of the other ones, for abandoned call percentage, answer call percentage, or maybe answered average, ring duration, I kind of want to clean up those labels. So I've actually built out new labels for them and gave them abandonment rate, average speed of answer, total answered calls, et cetera, just kind of matching what a client was looking to actually see. So I kind of built those out. I already have those 6 or 7 built, so I can actually apply them to my report. So if you look in the report that I had, so I'm still calling it answer percentage, abandon percentage, total call count, and original called party number. Let's go ahead and rerun that guy real quickly and actually use that label set. So I'm going to hit the play button here. And actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's actually run it with the no details, make it a little cleaner, and then we'll actually run in a PDF, so it won't be as lengthy. PDF, I've suppressed the detail. Oh, here we are. But yes, the label set that I was just mentioning. So by default, we're going to be using the Cisco nomenclature out of the box. But certainly once you build those labels underneath the custom label sets within analytics, we can select them from reports and or dashboard widgets. And maybe I'll even throw in the appendix here. So we're going to go ahead and run this. I do want it to be for 2 weeks. Here we go. All day, all night. Okay, you can certainly exclude certain days of the week or only include the business hours. You certainly have all those options. Let's go ahead and run this guy real briefly, and it should look a little much more polished and punched up than the previous. Okay, so now we have an 8-page report since we've now suppressed all that detail, but I've also relabeled things. So instead of total call count, I've got total presented calls. Instead of answer call percentage, I've got answer rate, and same with abandoned call percentage. I've got abandonment rate. And then also, let's see what I've got down here. I'm also then listing out, instead of original called party number, I'm listing out the the Hunt Pilot DNs numerically here, but at least I want to give a header to recognize that it is a Hunt Pilot summary. So certainly we do know that we have those options there. And then obviously it breaks it down by those same corresponding by date time unit that I had used by these specific call categories, including the secondary field section here of the cradle to grave search sets for the calls that were handled in under 30 seconds, excuse me. But now that we have those labels, we can also even take them to the dashboard. So, of course, oh, it really jumped around on me, didn't it? All right, you're supposed to be up here. You're over here. Okay. So yeah, answer call percentage. So let's go ahead and swap this stuff out. Original called party number. So I don't need to do this individually. I can certainly do it board wide, or I could do it individualized on each widget. Each one of the widgets does have an appearance option, but I plan on using the global one for the dashboard. But you can certainly click on the appearance, and you can segue away from using the dashboard's global visual presentation and utilize per widget, I guess, scalings, if you will, or label sets. But I'm just going to change that back to use the global. And then we'll use the global, and you'll see that I do have this drop down here for custom label sets. Once again, we're using system default by default, but once custom labels are built, you have the luxury of being able to use them. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that right now. And any one of those 7 that I had built in that label set should appear on these dashboard widgets now. So, okay, here we go. So, and you can even hover over them as well, and they will illuminate with a hover over that this is a custom label for abandoned call percentage. And even this one right here, Hunt Pilot, so called custom label for original called party number. So just another way to go ahead and kind of polish this to make it kind of more ideal and represent and very intuitive for an audience member to read and not need to be so quote unquote techie speak, for instance. So relabeling for total presented calls, answer rate, abandonment rate. I do believe I also have in here, it was in the report, I have average speed to answer. Let me pull that up. And I thought I had it. This is the old one. I must have closed that too prematurely. Excuse me, let me just run this one last time. Actually, you know what? I don't need to run it. Because actually I can harvest it. Because any report that's ran out of Verify, when you're in the report section, you can certainly segue into the report repository and either re-download or check and see if a report has failed. Since I've already ran that guy, I'm just going to click the download button and re-download it. Here it is. I believe I should have, here we go. Average speed to answer is another one of my label sets. So instead of having, average, ring time, we can certainly put in, average speed of answer. So it's more pronounced for the audience members that are receiving this content. Okay, I think that's about all I have with regards to, to kind of easily kind of build this stuff out for, call handler menu trees to be able to identify that stuff. Just a little data example or data exercises within, the analytics history section. I feel that is a great stepping stone to kind of formulate filters and search criteria so that you can go ahead and build out corresponding widgets and or reports for this content. All right, Dre, I'm a little light on content, my friend. Might we have any questions from the audience today?
I think you're a little light. I think you were pretty good. You were so good that we didn't have any questions so far. So
Come on.
No, it was really, really informative there. I actually learned a
Okay.
couple things too. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, fantastic.
Absolutely.
All right.
We'll
Well,
give another couple seconds here,
yeah.
see if anybody wants to chime in on anything. And just a reminder, everybody, you can go back and rewatch these on our website as well.
Definitely. You can always lay out these dashboard widgets however you see fit. I mean, certainly my call statistic summary widgets here, certainly they can be individual tiled, or you can lengthen that row out to showcase all of the metrics that you specified that you wanted to be displayed here. But all of these statistics certainly match everything that I've got in my PDF that is sitting right over here. So the 409, yeah, the 295, the 26, and the 37, all of that is represented here with all those corresponding answer rates, abandonment rates. So very easy to kind of pick and pull things off of reports and even build them into dashboard widgets, or complement them, as I like to say. I suppose if there are no other questions, Dre, I suppose I can kick the sharing back to you, sir.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Should have presenter rights back by now.
I do. Should be sharing again.
Okay.
All right. All right, before we move on, I just want to remind you guys about Planet Verify, our new online community where you can connect with us and other Verify users and expand your knowledge of all things Verify. You can also sign up to be a beta tester for our Verify EFT 13.0. So hop on over to planet.verify.com or verify.com/planet and take a look around. All right, the moment we've all been waiting for, the winner of the $50 Amazon gift card. Little drum roll. And today's winner is Michael Dumont. Congratulations. We're going to have your account manager reach out to you shortly with that gift card. All right, guys, don't forget next week, join us where Jim and Brian is going to demonstrate Verify's multi-database support. At same time, same place.
Same bat channel.
That's right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you for joining all. Take care.